Hello everybody, welcome from me, Jack, and from the Frankenlise, which is finally back.
It's alive.
It's been quite a while since I've been with this car, and it's been in storage for a while, so it was under a covered roof, but it was open to the elements and I forgot to put the cover on, so it's become really dusty, but really good to have it back. Now there's a few things that we're going to be doing today, but before that I've just got to tell you about something that happened previously that I had filmed but wasn't enough for a whole video. So at one point a few months ago, when I got to the Frankenlise, tried to put it into gear and it wouldn't go into gear, so the clutch just wasn't working. I started having really bad thoughts about what could be wrong. And one of the things that I checked was the slave cylinder to see if something was going on there. And when I was filming it, you could see that it was actuating, it was working, but the whole bracket it was on was pivoting to the side, it was bending. That's because one of the bolts holding it in had been cross-threaded at some point and eventually had been torn out. Because of the position that it's in, without taking the engine out, I couldn't helicoil it and so on. So what I did is clean the thread up as much as possible, and it did still have some hold, but I thought that it was probably going to tear out again at some point. So I contacted the guys who supplied the glues, Permabond, who supplied the glues for the chassis, and asked them, is there anything that's strong enough and that will resist heat that I can use on there to strengthen the threads, but also just to help hold the bracket in place? And they did say there was something they thought that would work. And it's not an epoxy based, it's a different kind of glue. It is incredible. Anyway, I'm going to throw you back quickly to that time when I did the fix, and then we'll come back. Right, so here is the glue and the adapter. This tip already mixes the two pots. It's a two-part acrylic. The shiny bit there, that's the one where the bolt has come out. And believe it or not, it sits like this. The slave sits on here and it's strong enough to bend it, because all the other, there's 3 other bolts going through and they're all still in place, and yet this flexes enough. So hopefully this will sort it out. There we go, all glued, and let's hope it holds. I mean, there were some threads left and that stuff really is drying rock hard, so I'm hopeful. Back to the present day, and I've done a few hundred miles since. It all seems to be holding, so I think it's going to be okay, so that's great news. But there's a few things left over today. So first of all, there is this sill, which is still needs to be sort of painted, sorted out to make the Frankenlise look a little bit more presentable. It was never a priority, but I want to sort that out. Secondly, there was something else which has been happening with the Frankenlise, and that is that rear disc, the pad never looked like it was making proper contact because only half the disc was getting worn down. And I had a look, and initially I thought, well, okay, that's probably just that one of the calipers is sticking on one side, or... Unfortunately, when I had a look, I realised that wasn't what the problem was. The problem is that the bracket for the actual caliper itself had at one point bent, and I spoke to Phil, the genius who helped me fix the chassis, who knows these so well and has fixed a lot of them, and he said it's not uncommon for that to happen. So what he says would have happened is car would have hit it on this side. This is the bit where the damage was. The wheel would have broken. As it broke, it would have caught on the caliper itself and then bent the bracket. Now, I've already had a go previously at straightening it. It's quite a violent process. Phil just said, look, just heat up the bracket, hit it as hard as you can and keep adjusting and touching it until it gets better. It is much improved, as you can see from the disc. There is much more, it's touching much more, but it still needs a little bit more of honing. So if we get time today, I will also do that. Plus, I need to talk to you about future developments, because that's really going to be quite interesting. Firstly, I've been speaking to a chap who makes proper sort of gearbox pivots in the car. They're really nicely engineered, rose jointed, proper universal jointed things. And he's going to supply me with one of those, so I will do a video where I will fit that, because that is one of the weak points of these cars, is really the gear change. And also, I am pretty sure I want to change the shocks, so do give me some advice. I want good shocks. I don't necessarily want really stiff shocks. I don't drive at 11 tenths on the road the whole time, but I find these a little bit too wobbly, and they're just a bit soft, and they're not controlling the car very well. What would you recommend that I put on this car? I think yeah, but I want something that's usable on the road and gives a decent ride as well. So the seat is out, as you can see. I've already moved it over to the other side, tried to sort of cover up as best as possible, but this is going to be messy, and this is all the bit that I have to sort out and then give a coat of paint to. So started to fill. This area isn't going to be too important because it's going to be covered by the sill pad, but got to try and get this to look as decent as possible. Multitasking now. I've put another layer of filler on, which I'm going to sand down when it's dry. In the meantime, got the wheel off, caliper removed. And you can see there, it's just not making proper contact on that side, and the same but slightly less on the inside. And you can see it on the brake pad as well. That part of the brake pad isn't touching. Now what would have happened is that as the car came in, it would have broken the wheel, which would have folded underneath. It would have hit the caliper and it pulled this edge down. And you can actually see that, because if I have a straight edge on it, the top one is actually still straight, and the bottom one, it was much worse than this before, but you can still see a little gap there where it's turned in, and I need to straighten that out. So got my blowtorch and my hammer. I know it's a little bit medieval, but this is the way I've been told to do it, and frankly I don't fancy having to dismantle everything here, and I think it should be okay. That's looking much better. Thing is as well, I don't want to go too far the other way, so I'll need to put it back on and then just drive it and see if it makes contact with the whole disc and cleans it up, and then I'll know it's right. But that definitely looks better than before, so I think it should be okay. Almost ready for some high build primer, which is the next thing. So I need to sort out something so it doesn't go on the floor. Now obviously this isn't a great paint job, I know that, but the thing is the rest of the paint on the car isn't that great either, so at some point it will need a full repaint, so I'm not going mad with this. I just want to make it so it's not so noticeable pretty much. It's cold, it's getting dark, the paint isn't going on very well, I think just because it's too cold, so I'm going to try and warm it up with the hairdryer, see if that helps. Definitely atomizing a little bit better, still not great. I didn't manage to get it finished last night in the end. It was just too difficult. It was getting dark, it was freezing, all the rest of it. So I did put a top coat on, which I'm not sure if I showed you, but I found some bits, although it's not, you know, it's a temporary job, I still found a few bits that I really wasn't that happy with. So I've just put some more filler primer after having rubbed them down. Then I put another top coat, and then the lacquer, and this part, which I know will be quite lined, doesn't matter because it's going to have a kick plate over it anyway. Another little job I've been meaning to do for absolutely ages is these lights, where you can see actually they weren't even stuck down, they were letting in loads of crud and water. So get some fishing line and just hook it right at the top there, and then just bring it down. I think people use things like dental floss as well, but this is what I had hanging around, so I think there's some... Oops. Wow. Okay, so need to clean these up nicely, and then I've got some proper double-sided tape just for this purpose. That's also going to seal, but that looks horrible. Warming the paint first really does seem to help, so just doing that and then. Right, so it's done. Not my best work, but for the Frankenlise it will do, and there'll be a sill protector here as well. So that'll get rid of the worst bits, which are those. We'll cover that up, but definitely looking better than it was before. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. So excited to get the Frankenlise back. I think that it's probably going to be now another, I don't know, another couple of months before we get back to it again. But in the meantime, do let me know, please, on those shocks. I forgot to say, these are Gaz Gold shocks, which are the Gaz sort of basic shocks. And also they were set up by the previous owner. He asked them, when he bought them, he asked them to get some quite weak springs. I don't know what they are, because he didn't know. But he did tell me they are quite soft springs. So the other alternative is to go to Gaz and get them to reset them up, basically, with slightly stiffer springs, different damping, tell them what I want. And that's by far the most economical, and I don't know, maybe that's the way to go. But let me know your experiences. As I said, a road-based shocks, that's what I want. I don't want something that's going to be rock hard for the track. Thank you so much. Do please follow me on Instagram. Do please subscribe if you haven't already, and really look forward to seeing you to the next one.